There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Shoff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
I want to take a look today from some information that came to me from Kurt Schlickler, titled, and he addressed it, "They take your Second Amendment first and your First Amendment second." Democrats finally had some media bias they dislike. We've talked a lot about the liberal assault on our right as American citizens to keep and bear arms for the defense of ourselves, our families, our communities, and our Constitution. But it's a mistake to think of a disarmed population as their desired end state. No, folks, that's merely the first step toward the subjugation of the normals. What they, the liberals, want is not only for us to be disarmed, they want us to be silenced. They're not going to stop with the Second Amendment. If they get that, next, they're going to move on to finish off the First Amendment. And incidentally, folks, remember, it's the Second Amendment that ensures our rights for the rest of the amendments. The Second Amendment, our rights to bear arms. You see, the one-worlders, the Democrats, the mainstream media, they don't want you to speak freely. They don't want you to be able to. They don't want you to have access to a free press. They don't want you to practice your religion as you see fit. And when you're disarmed and silenced, when you're stripped of any God but government, the government they control absolutely and forever, then they will have achieved their dream. You see, you'll no longer be a citizen, you'll be a serf. We can imagine what an America without our rights would look like, and folks, it ain't good. It's really bad. Well, you want to take a look at what's really happening? Let's take a look across the ocean and see what's happening there. The British have given us a preview. I've often said and believed that a lot of things that start in Europe come to the United States next. It's kind of like California. You know, any bad dream they get, smoked up or whatever, it'll come to the other states later. Anyway, in Britain, they allowed themselves to be disarmed. But you say, why would they really need guns? Britain is totally safe. Well, except for London, which just stumbled past New York in terms of violent crime. Oh, and it has an epidemic of knife violence and acid attacks. But on the plus side, hey, the folks in Britain are pretty helpless. In the view of the elite, this is a plus. When you are helpless, you need them, and you are compliant. But at least they have freedom of speech. Oh, except, really, no, they don't. In recent weeks, some guy calling himself Count Dankla was convicted of a crime for saying something. Yeah, you say for saying something? Yeah, it was a joke and a tasteless one, but he now faces jail for speaking words. Think about that. And the police agency in a land that used to be a bulwark of freedom and human rights are on the case, tweeting, warning others who might say something that offends the elite sensibilities that the bobbies are watching. Incidentally, the bobbies in Great Britain are the police. George Orwell would be saying, see, I told you. He'd say that if he was alive, except he'd probably be in the slammer too for saying things that are illegal to say today. Let's do a little review. In once Great Britain, there are things that are illegal to say. But not here at home, not in America. Why could that ever happen here? Liberals certainly don't want to limit your speech, just like, they don't really want to take your guns. They just want to know how many do you have and where do you keep them? What are the serial numbers? No, they wouldn't take them, would they? Baloney, folks. The left is intent on taking away not only your guns, but your right to speak freely. Take a gander at our college campuses if you want a spoiler into what America will look like in 20 years if these aspiring Castros get their way. Try saying what you want on a college campus. Try saying something that dissents from the gospel pushed by the pierced, tattered up, screaming weirdos that the gutless administrators cave to. State the obvious. There are only two genders, not 183 of them. Or refuse to use the ridiculous gender-neutral pronouns like XIR and XIP. See what happens. Do you think hugging happens? Or do you think violent, unhinged retribution against the wrong thinker happens? Let's not even talk about due process and the campus kangaroo courts, because there's nothing to talk about. Academic justice does not mean an examination of the facts and evidence, with the accused offered the chance to provide a meaningful defense that includes the right to cross-examine the witnesses against him. Yes, him, because their justice is not remotely like justice. It is, instead, a hierarchy of fake operation narratives that dictates that the accused must be punished because of the difference between who he is and who the accuser is. And guess who's at the bottom and presumed guilty? Remember, all is not just tolerated by liberals. They think it is good that your voice is silenced. They think it is good that you have your life destroyed, not because of what you did, but because of your sex or race or beliefs. This oppression is not a bug. To them, this oppression is a feature, and is spreading off campus into the real world like gangrene. It's not as far along as the campaign to leave you defenseless in the face of Democrat-friendly criminals and aspiring Democrat tyrants, but it's coming. Look at the Roseanne Barr. Look at that issue. She's hardly a conservative, but who dared to buck the elite's prejudice about normal people and refused to portray them as a hideous racist buffoons in the reboot of her show? But still, she's not really a conservative. She's just speaking like one. This is unforgivable in the eyes of the liberals, but it's a huge hit thanks to the flyover rubes. So the elite's trying to destroy her. Look at Laura Ingraham. She said something liberals don't like this past week or week and a half ago. And through their agents and the big corporations, and only an idiot believes that corporate America is still dominated by old-school Republicans instead of eager Democrat allies, they attempted to annihilate her. They attempted to take all of her sponsors away. And the liberals cheered at the thought that her voice would be silenced, including alleged journalists. Folks, there was a time when journalists at least pretended to believe in a free press. But one of the great things about the age of Donald Trump is how the masks have come tumbling off. Liberal journalists hate the idea of free speech because you normals might dare presume to use it. Liberals love the idea of shutting up the opposition. Today it's through intimidation. Tomorrow it'll be through the government. It all starts with guns. Liberals hate the idea of having guns for two reasons. The first is the fact that guns are the tools of free men. And when you have them, you have the dignity that comes with the ability to protect your lives and your rights. They want to strip you of that dignity, both because doing so will humiliate you and show you who's really the boss, and because they enjoy rubbing your uppity robed noses in your own powerlessness. But of course you aren't powerless yet, because regardless of their ridiculous lies about how an informed citizenry can't possibly pose a threat, a military threat, to a leftist dictatorship, they really know very well that as long as you have your weapons, you'll never be their slaves. Once your Second Amendment rights are gone, do you think the liberals will suddenly decide to be more respectful of your First Amendment rights? Or do you think they'll accelerate their campaign to strip you of your civil rights that remain the last obstacle to their total control? Once again, this is Richard Shoff. I am the host of What in the World's Going On. We are sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes, and I have one parting thought for you. This past weekend, I had a birthday. Not going to tell you how old I am, but I will tell you I'm not young anymore. For many, many years, I've thought of my birthday as the date that my mother suffered to deliver me into this world. I thought about it a great deal this past week, what she went through. Mom's gone home to be with the Lord. That was 2003. When I had my birthday this week, I thought of Mom. Sure glad she didn't believe in abortion. Aren't you? Goodbye until a later broadcast. Richard Shoff from What in the World is Going On.